Okay, this is video number 8. I wanted to bring you up to speed on the clamp project. I think I've probably invested a few more hours in these things, but I wanted to show you that we've got those ready to go, and we're going to move on to a couple other small projects. I want to show you a little bit about tuning up the soundboard, and we're probably going to strip a little finish today and maybe take off some frets. But anyway, I wanted to get the clamps out of the way. They're about $8 a piece online, and I needed some 24 of them, so it was worth the effort. I'm gonna probably have to reposition the camera to show you some of the work on the soundboard. So if you'll bear with me, we'll get that ready. Okay, we're repositioned. I want to show you a little bit about the carving I've done on some of the soundboards and do a little sanding just to show you what that's involved. It's kind of tedious and time consuming, but I'm going to show you a little bit of it. The purpose of this carving and this relieving that we do on some of these is to increase the vibration in the soundboard without compromising the stiffness of the brace. So we got to be pretty careful how we do that. It's kind of nerve-wracking because I have to carve them with a chisel, and I don't want to run the chisel through the side of the guitar. So I've put a little protection in there, and it goes something like this. We just peel away I've had a mark here, specific distance back from the end of the guitar, the end of the brace, and I just try to start to peel these off as gently as we can with a sharp chisel. Trying not to run it through the side of the guitar. Just taking a few simple bites at a time. You can see it slowly whittles down. I've watched some craftsmen take these right down to absolute zero. I'm reluctant to do that. I'm not as professional as some people, so I'm gonna bring these down to about 1/8 of an inch or 3/16 of the soundboard, and I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna try to go all the way. And it looks something like that right there. And we'll try to taper these sides a little bit. It takes a pretty sharp chisel, and mine is not the greatest. But we get it done. And it looks something like that. We can take out our protection now. We want to sand that a little bit just to make it look like we knew what we were doing. Now, this was the last one. I've done the others, as you can see. We've got another one on this side that we've also completed. I want to sand that one a little bit. I hope I'm not getting in the way of I guess I'm probably getting in the way of the camera. But you get the idea. Just give it some finished look. Isn't quite so rough. And we don't have to taper these up here so much. You see the ends of these are not cut down. There's little or no vibration in the top half of the neck. Little or no resonance. The sound definitely comes out of the hole, but the resonance of the guitar is in the lower bout. So we don't worry too much about. We're more concerned about stiffness up here, particularly in the top, because as you can see, that's where the neck bears all of the weight, and the weight is up this way. When you pull on the strings, the neck wants to bow this way. So there's plenty of support here, and that's the way we want to keep it. I think I'm going to stop the camera again, and we'll go on to, let me show you a little bit about the butt plate before we go. This is was the old bridge. It looked to me like it's hand carved, and I just didn't want to get rid of it. I thought maybe if Sherman is the one that did the repairs, he may have carved this. So we've got a damaged spot on the back of the guitar. This was I don't know if you can see these nail holes, but it was nailed and screwed together by someone, and I wanted to try to figure out a way to cover that up. So I think what I've decided to do is take this old bridge, and we may make a patch out of the bridge just to cover it up and serve the bridge for conversation piece later. But this was not the original. It was made during a repair. I'm not sure who made the repair, but at any rate, it's going to help to cover up some of this damage that was done and conserve this little piece of history. Okay, before we eventually move on to gluing the top or the back on the guitar, I want to remove what's left of this old shellac finish, so that when we have to clean the glue squeeze out along these edges, that we're not getting involved in this old finish and having that cause us a problem. So I've got denatured alcohol. Dissolves this old shellac finish quite easily. I'm going to show you how we go about doing that. Just dip a little Scotch-Brite pad into the denatured alcohol, and we just wipe it on. And you see it comes off fairly easily. Just a little elbow grease, not a whole lot. And some of it's sort of thick in areas because, again, it's all hand done. Probably during the repair, obviously, with a big brush. As you can see, the grain, this is what they called a painted grain. It's a late 1800s version of antiquing, I guess. If you've refinished any material, there was a time in the 70s and 80s when antiquing was the thing, where you added a brush stroke to create grain. Well, that's exactly what they've done here. You can see, actually, this is not grain, this is actually brush strokes of some kind of a stain. Fortunately, the stain does not come off when we clean the finish, so that we don't destroy the actual appearance of the guitar. But when we go back over this with an amber shellac or something, this should really pop, and it's really going to be pretty. The front of the guitar was white, was quite white. You can see here where no finish was applied underneath of the old tailpiece was here. And you can see it was white, clear here. So the top is going to be nearly clear spruce. And the sides will have the wood grain finish. So it's going to be pretty. So we're going to try to complete some of this removal. Now if you see these white spots along the outside edge, these clear areas, this is where the old glue job, when they glued the back on, this is their squeeze out. So when they varnished over it, it didn't take where the glue was. So we're gonna have to try to remove some of that so that our finish will be more uniform. You can see these various areas that have been, that's just glue slobbered around the outside. But we're going to continue going around. Take the rest of this finish off with denatured alcohol. Comes off quite readily. Just a little Scotch-Brite, some elbow grease. It's a lot easier than trying to use some kind of a stripper or something. Not necessary. This finish comes off quite readily. And leaves a kind of a pretty finish. This is a shellac that's on here. And apparently had some kind of a dark stain put into it. I don't know if they possibly could have used maybe a walnut extract to stain that of some sort. Walnuts were frequently used because of the staining that if any of you has had any walnuts in your driveway that you ran over, you know what a stain they can cause. And that's a lot, and they use that actually for coloring. So we're going to keep taking off this finish. We're almost around to the end, and there's not a lot left. I'm sure we'll do much more detail on this later, but I'm just trying to get this off in preparation for the gluing process of the front to the back, or the back to the front. We'll probably end up putting some kind of a matte finish on here as opposed to gloss. Gloss would show a lot of these imperfections, which we're actually trying to eliminate as much as possible. So we'll probably go back with some kind of a, you can see a lot of the, if you look closely here, you can see a lot of the glue squeeze out and things that were left over on the edge here. We're gonna have to try to scratch that off because those will show through the clear finish, and we're gonna put a clear finish on it. So we wanna be careful to try to get as much of that off as possible. And I know it's glue. That's glue because the denatured alcohol won't remove it, so it's not part of the finish. We've got another little spot over here we want to take off. This same finish was on the front, and I've taken off a lot of it, but I think we're going to have to do some bleaching to get the rest of that off. Bleaching and sanding in order to get the front of the guitar back to the natural, as close to the natural spruce as we can. There, we've got rid of most of the old finish. We'll have to go over this again probably numerous times by the time we get all that glue scratched off of it. I'm anxious myself to see what the new finish is going to look like. It should be kind of pretty, I think. I'm going to take just a touch up, a quick second swipe over all of this, just to try to get as much as we can before we get into the detail work. And there we go. The finish is off. A lot of cleanup again, a lot of cleanup to do. You see all these marks. Here's a big glue drip. Here's another one. A lot of this is some saw marks. We see some glue splatter here. We're going to try to refresh that as much as we can. Okay, before we get to, we're going to move on to fret removal here. I'm going to show you how we do these. Some of them are missing. They're all extremely worn, heavily worn, so they're going to have to be replaced. Some of them are missing, so it pretty much requires a replacement at any rate. But another small problem, that not a problem, but something we need to repair was this hole. It's a peg. It's actually a peg that the guitar strap hooks onto. It was heavily damaged, and it was stuffed in there, wedged in there with a piece of with a piece of cloth to hold it in place because the hole was worn so badly. Now remember, we replaced this block, so this is a brand new hole. So the hole has been refreshed, and unfortunately the plug is not. You can see the head of the plug is supposed to be round, and actually it's quite flat. So I think we're going to end up having to replace that. I'm trying to source some ebony to make a new plug out of that, but I haven't found any yet. But this is a tapered plug. I've clamped these two scales on there so you can see that this is actually a tapered plug, which means that this ends up having to be a tapered hole to hold that in place. So we don't want to glue that in place. It'll be jammed in with a taper and held in place by a taper. So we've got to find out what the taper is. It looks like it's about 2.5 or 3 degrees. I believe we can buy a 3-degree taper to drill a hole the proper size and taper this hole. We're going to move on to some fret removal now. I think that our soldering iron is hot, and I'm going to show you what we do with the soldering iron here to remove the frets. If we heat up the fret, any glue, grease, or debris that was that's holding this in place will be softened and allow us to pull it out a little bit easier. And what happens is, if you pull it out without that, you tend to erupt the joint. I don't know if you can see how when you these have a little wedge on them, like a barb on the back side, and then it erupts and breaks out on some of the fret slots. So we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. We do that with heat so that hopefully we can soften any glue or debris that's in there. So we take a little soldering iron and we just go across to heat the fret. We're trying to heat up the fret. So that we can pull it off without doing too much damage. We can repair these, but it's just another step. If some of the grain does erupt out of there, we're going to have to make that repair, but we can do that as long as we don't lose the material in the process. Okay, so we take the fretting tool, and it's just a wedge-shaped pliers, and it squeezes down under the edges of the fret and pulls it out by leverage. So we just kind of put it on there and we wiggle it a little bit. I felt it pop. There, I'm feeling it popping out. We wiggle it gently, and there it is. There's the fret. Difficult to see, perhaps, but they're just the same. So we're going to heat up another one. heat up these frets. Now this fretboard, this is called the fretboard. It's got to be sanded and resealed. It's in worn shape too. You can see that some of the, here's an example of the, this is what a fingernail does. I don't know if you can see that little divot right there. But a player's fingernails end up making their way into the fretboard over many, many years of wear. So we sand all this off to eliminate all those things. So the fretboard looks new when we're done. So we've heated up the glue here a little bit, or any debris that might be under there. We're going to wiggle this loose. And there it comes, another fret, free to be replaced. Now you can see some eruption that took place when we pulled out these frets, and I've made the repairs with some super glue. But down here, little or no eruption, so we should be in pretty good shape. I actually burned it a little bit there with the soldering iron, but this has all got to be sanded, and it will be pretty natural walnut grain when we get done. It's interesting to note that in modern guitars, there is also a button at the 3rd fret. 3rd fret happens to be missing on this guitar, but this button was never installed at the factory. Very interesting. 5th, 7th, and 10th, but no 3rd. So we're going to keep going in this fret removal. I'll show you how we do one more, and then I'll turn the video off. This fret is heavily worn. It's very flat here, and it's got sort of a round top on it here. When the frets are new, they would look like, if you laid a finishing nail down in that groove, it's a round top or a mushroom top. But these are worn nearly flat. So we're going to just have to try to pull these out gently. And there's a myriad of fret material out there on the market, many sizes and shapes. Silver, nickel, stainless steel, a lot of different varieties of material to pick from. And I've made a decision on which one we're going to use, but I'll take that up with you in another video. So I'm going to turn the video off now, and we'll remove the rest of these frets, and I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Okay, so I've completed the removal of all the frets. They're all free. I can take a long sanding board and smooth this and make any repairs that need to be out to fill up some of these divots, these fingernail divots, with the sawdust that comes from the actual soundboard itself. We mix that with super glue, put the powder in there and add super glue and let it set up, and we sand it and it virtually disappears. So there's a way to do that. You can see the frets. They're all very worn, and I'm anxious to get the new ones in there at some future date. In the course of working on this soundboard thing here, it's critically important that the height of the string height on the guitar has to be located correctly with regard to the height, the actual height of the new bridge. And unfortunately, because of years of use, this, maybe you can see the flex here. If I flex, this flex over the years has caused the head to rise, which causes this end of the strings, because they're strung from here to here, the strings rise up. Unfortunately, this part of the neck goes down because of the force of the strings. And you got to remember, there's 60 to 70 pounds of weight. Once you tighten the tuners, 60 to 70 pounds of pull on each string, and there's 6 strings. So at 60 pounds, there's 300 or 400 pounds of force being pulled from the bridge to the tuning pegs. So that's what causes this distortion. And it ends up lowering this end of the deck, and this end of the soundboard. So what we have to do is we have to position the neck in such a way that it rises up and actually ends up nearly to be flush with the bridge, which it clearly is not now. So unfortunately, we've had another major, I think I mentioned before in the last video that probably the most critical thing was gluing the back on and making sure we get it straight. Although it's extremely important, the primary and single most important thing that we have to do is correct the neck angle. That means we have to pull this neck off. It's glued on there, and we've got to, I've gotten a steamer that we can steam this joint off and take this out. Then we have to clean the joint and re-shim this so that it's at the proper angle to bring it into compliance with the new bridge. That's going to be a big job. Unfortunately, in my haste, I've caused a little damage to the heel of the guitar, which you can see here. I've saved the pieces. I can repair it. It's just one of those frustrating things that you have to go through. And I've got the rosewood cap that goes back on it. So this will all be as good as new. We won't see any damage here when we're done, but unfortunately, remember, I think I told you that we had glued a shim in here. Well, I've had to take the shim out when I realized the neck angle was wrong. I had to take the shim back out, and in the process, I did a little damage. But this is repairable, so we're going to be able to take care of that. And hopefully on the next video, we may show you how we go about steaming this deck, the neck joint, and getting the neck of the guitar actually off of the body of the guitar. When we do that, then we will glue the back on before we glue the neck on, so that there's no distortion at all in the body of the guitar, so that when we put the new neck on, we will be certain that there's none of this movement in the top of the neck here, because it will be held securely by the back. So it's a few more steps in the process, but not something we can't do with a little patience. So if we get the neck and the back on, then we can actually start the refinishing process and the rebuilding of the tuning pegs, which are not originals. These were built in the 30s, and they were replacements well after Sherman moved to Beloit and lived on the Division Street house. So anyway, there we are. That's video number 8, and we'll carry on. As soon as we get ready to remove the neck, we'll make another video.